Welcome to our Thriving with Nature, Why Biodiversity is a Strategic Business Priority event hosted by the UN Global Compact Network Portugal at COP29 in the Portuguese Pavilion. Today we explore why biodiversity is not an environmental issue but also a critical element of business strategy. To start, we are pleased to introduce Francisco Ferreira, President at Zero, as our keynote speaker.
So, good morning to all of you, and I'd like to thank this opportunity by the UN Global Compact in Portugal to have me here, talk for a while. I don't have any presentation, but I want to use my 8-10 minutes to tell you how important it is to actually have this conversation today. And let me start to tell you that this year is a particularly special year because it's 1 year of the 3 COPs, as you know. So we started with biodiversity that ended up to 2 weeks ago, where I had the opportunity to actually participate in Colombia, in Cali. Now we have the climate change COP, and then we will have the desertification, the convention to to combat desertification in Saudi Arabia. And these COPs are fully connected, and they are incredibly important to connect and to deliver on the crisis that we have in the planet. We do have a climate crisis. This is a huge wave of problems for the next decades and generations, but we also have a crisis on biodiversity. Not only a crisis where nature depends on the impacts from climate change, but also on the needs where biodiversity is an opportunity to actually avoid climate change. So it's kind of a cycle that we need to connect between biodiversity and climate change. And of course, desertification is another issue that is related in this area. Let me talk just a little bit first on the biodiversity, then go to climate, and then the idea of a business opportunity, thriving through these 3 COPs. The first issue is that 2 years ago in Montreal, we had the Paris Agreement for biodiversity. And we decided on 23 goals for 2030, and we decided to also 4 major goals for 2050. And we are only 6 years from now to 2030, and those targets include the classification of 30% of the land and the oceanic area as protected areas. We need to restore 30% of the areas worldwide that are already damaged. We want to have a huge financing to preserve biodiversity. We want to involve the indigenous and local communities in this protection. We want to have the services from the ecosystems well provided to support all the planet, from food to other services, from water, air, soil. Indeed, when we look at biodiversity, we're talking about the fundamentals of the Sustainable Development Goals. One of the most key important issues is that when we look at the priorities of the Sustainable Development Goals, usually we actually look at an interface where they seem equal. Like the environment, the social and the economic, and also the governments. But it's not. If we don't have the environment, it's actually, environment is the fundamental basis for people. And then from people, we have the economy. So we really need to have this hierarchy on providing this opportunity to to look forward on going through a system that is all related, but is crucial to overcome this threatened planet. So on the business on biodiversity as a strategic business priority, I would like to tell you first of all that we have the possibility to actually look at biodiversity from the company side on the involvement of the private sector to actually preserve, to be part of their action under their goals. You know that we have a lot of reporting. We are too focused sometimes on climate, trying to compensate emissions, preferably to mitigate emissions. But if we actually consider that the value of the ecosystem services, that is just, an incredible opportunity to have a more integrated and global vision of on how to help humanity through this crisis. And it is a business opportunity first because not only we can look at pathways to support areas that are critical in all the countries to actually provide those services. So let's not think only about compensating carbon. Let's think about preserving all ecosystems and all those services. That is much more important. Also to support the people that live in those areas and the projects that we can find both in Portugal and in a lot of countries to actually get investment from companies and from businesses are just amazing. And that, I think, is a target that we should foster. Again, we have a lot of opportunities that we can and should explore. Another important thing is that in the Biodiversity COP, we had a particular document between climate change and biodiversity. And it's good to look at those interfaces and see how we can work together. Actually, there was a decision from the Biodiversity COP that we need to stop working in different COPs. We need to actually engage the so-called Rio COPs, Rio conventions, to work together. And again, talking about opportunities for business, one of the issues is also on the research, to have proper indicators on how we provide the value from biodiversity. It's extremely difficult, for instance, for us to explain the advantage of what we can do when we invest in biodiversity. And that was a hot topic. Actually, I don't know if you're familiar with, but the Biodiversity COP was suspended. There was no quorum at the end on Saturday. So it was supposed to finish on Friday. And on Saturday, there was no quorum to continue. So some of the documents were approved and some were not. And one of the documents that were not approved, they will be approved probably in a continuation of the Biodiversity COP, was one on indicators. And to measure these numbers, to have these numbers, these indicators are crucial for the companies to evaluate their success in different aspects, from the nature to the human component to the economic component. Another issue is related with the importance of all the genetic information. And for the first time, two issues. Pharmaceutical companies, agro companies, let me think about other companies, cosmetics, they will provide part of their profits, 0.1 to 1%, to a fund to support local communities. And this was just decided 2 weeks ago. And indeed, is again an opportunity to get involved in this economic sense of providing better biodiversity and involvement of the communities. Finally, one other key decision as a business opportunity is related with the fact that I don't know if you are familiar with the arrangements in the conventions, but there are several boards. We have the so-called. Okay, let me explain a little bit. In the Climate Change Convention, in the Biodiversity Convention, you have two subsidiary bodies. The one for technology advancement, one for other implementation issues. And in that Biodiversity Convention, a new board was created to involve the communities. So it's the first time that it happens. And the idea is not to have the private sector on the side, but to actually involve in projects, in long-term projects, where we can have those benefits. To finish up, in the beginning of this COP on Monday, there was a decision on the carbon markets. Article 6.4, Article 6.2, so something that comes from the Paris Agreement, and where both countries and companies will have the opportunity to provide financing to projects to where you can take out the carbon from the atmosphere through forestation and from other types of investments. I think that it is a great opportunity for us to engage in this type of projects, but we have to do it in a very transparent way, in a very sustainable and permanent way. We cannot be allowed to go forward with a lot of projects where if we don't have the resilience to retain that carbon and to actually improve the biodiversity of the areas being intervened. So as a final remark, I think that companies are too carbon-centered, and they have to be both carbon and biodiversity-centered. And that's the real challenge. I think they have to engage the communities, they have to involve the NGOs, and together we have to provide an environment for the different countries where we can actually work together for both the 23 targets of the so-called Coming Montreal Protocol signed 2 years ago and the Paris Agreement. That is one of the widest challenges that we have, and I think that the panel that we have today here is definitely an opportunity to discuss how to work together and how we can mix these different components towards a better future to save the planet and also to deal with these three crises of biodiversity, climate, and resources and pollution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francisco, for your insightful speech. Following the keynote, we will not dive into a panel discussion with organizations from academia, municipality, and private sector. Please join me in welcoming our panelist, Patrícia Pereira da Silva, Pro-Rector of Coimbra University, Filipa Laborinho, Councillor at Oeiras Municipality, João Teixeira, Head of Sustainability at Natura. Moderating today's discussion is Jorge Cristino, Partner at Get2See.
Well, thanks a lot for the introduction and welcome again now in this event. And I will moderate this roundtable, this panel, and of course with these insights of Francisco Ferreira that is very important, and also resume the conclusion of 16th Convention for Biodiversity, UN Convention, and of course, besides the Cali Fund and the funding boost that was observed in the conclusions of this convention, it's also important that some climate change and biodiversity alignment was it was also make big steps for that, and this decision make also the opportunity to have this discussion today relating also business, academia, and also municipalities, all the ecosystem to driving this biodiversity finance opportunities. I will also to remark the World Economic Forum that highlighted the significant dependence, and also Francisco said about that, the global economy of nature and ecosystem service. For example, some numbers, more than $4 trillion of economic value generation, which is half of world GDP, is moderately or highly dependent of nature and its service. Industries, for example, that are highly dependent on nature generate is about 15% of the global GDP. That is approximately $30 trillion of the GDP. The industries that are moderately dependent on the ecosystem service is 37% of the global GDP. Well, these figures underscore all the critical role that ecosystems play in the global economy. And I will start to ask how these outcomes represent this pivotal step to go forward in terms of global biodiversity conservation efforts that is necessary, and also to emphasize the importance of necessity for sustainable finance to achieve the global biodiversity and climate change targets. So I will begin with João Teixeira, that is the head of Sustainable Natura. And all these outcomes represent this emphasizing of this finance for the biodiversity.
Hello, good morning.
You have to switch on? Okay.
Yeah, now it is working. Hello everyone, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here at the Portuguese stand here at the COP. I used to live in Portugal, so it's really a pleasure for me to be here. I'm João Teixeira. I'm currently working at Natura Cosmetics. It's a Brazilian brand of cosmetics. For who doesn't know, it's the biggest cosmetic brand in Latin America. And we are much based on an ecological view of using the social biodiversity of the Amazon region. We started working with biodiversity around year 2000. In terms of researching the benefits of the raw ingredients from the Amazon biodiversity, in terms to deliver a really unique ingredient for cosmetics. And for that, we were engaging with traditional communities in the region to source those ingredients in an ethical and manner that is also not only promoting the ecosystem conservation, but also increasing the income of those local communities, improving the welfare of these communities and the resilience of those communities in the region. And we have not only sourcing them, but also implementing some agro-industries in the cooperative or the associations that we work with them in order to promote a more aggregated value of the product that they sell to us. Further on in Brazil, as Francisco just mentioned, there is this new fund that is related to the benefit sharing of using the genetic heritage of biodiversity. And we in Brazil has a legislation since 2015 that we are already sharing those benefits with the community. So in Brazil we have 1% of the profit of the sales of these products that use those raw ingredients goes directly to these communities, and we somehow do an approach that based on a theory of change, in order to understand how this profit that they will receive for this will benefit the sustainable development of those communities. So just in terms of numbers, we have shared more than 50 million reals, almost like 10 million euros with those communities, and we have seen lots of improvements on that. Also, I really think that carbon market plays a really good role when we are talking about REDD Plus activities that conserves the forest standing, but also how those incomes can also goes to those communities who are in the ground, preserving, conserving the ecosystem, and actually making the ecosystem services for the whole society. So it's pretty important to also understand that those mechanisms that we are seeing in discussions like the Article 6, but also in the private sector with offsetting projects like REDD Plus or even restoration projects, how this also benefits the community, not only in terms of conserving the biodiversity, promoting the transition to a low carbon economy for those companies, but mainly how those communities living in the Amazon do have a really good source of income for them to be living in the region. Just one final remark.
Yes.
Not sure if everyone knows, but there is 30 million people that live in the Amazon region. So that's how big we should understand that there is not only forests, but also people living there, and how we need to include them in this ecosystem of finance.
So it's not only to add value in terms of resources and also to use the resources, but also to look to all the value chain, including the communities, to engage in them, to aware about the importance of the biodiversity. In this sense, I will ask to Filipe Labrinho, is Deputy Mayor of Municipality of Oeiras. So looking for the importance of the communities and also the role that a municipality have in terms of the promoting and leverage the biodiversity, and also to monitoring, to promoting, to raising fund near the companies. How can we have some action and local activities that fostering these objectives?
Well, first, in an urban area and in a big city, of course, this is a very big challenge, but we need to do it. So in Oeiras, we did an action plan for biodiversity, and we do several axes. One is the engage of the citizens, the community. Every year we do one thing that we call the BioBlitz, where we gather together citizens and scientists, and they go through the areas where we have natural spaces, finding species, taking pictures, and register in a data platform, so we can start registering every species that we have, fauna, flora. But this started some time ago. We have 5 small rivers crossing our territory. What we started to do is to restore these water lines and included them what we call green and blue axes. So what we did with these lines is creating areas where people can go. We have what we call the biospots, where every time we have new species, we create these biospots where people can see what are the species there from the rivers, or from the animals from the rivers, or from the green spaces. So we started to do this, but we go forward. We are starting to look also for the city. When we are planning the city, we started to do green corridors, and so when we plan these urban areas where new buildings are going to be created, we negotiate with the private, so we start to creating put putting together all these green zones and preserving these green areas, putting places where the water can go into the soil. So we are working in several areas. Also, I brought today the wine. We have a big farm from the 18th century where it was an agriculture farm. It was from the Pombal Marquis, and he did wine, he did honey, he did silk, and so we are starting to restore these old traditions of the city. We restored this wine that was almost extinct. It was a very small, special zone of wine, and so
It's
we stored
local vineyards
it's
and
a local vineyard,
autochthonous vineyards.
yes,
Yeah.
but it's the municipality who takes care of all the process since the vineyard until we sell the wine for people. So, and we have a very special care for communicating what we are doing, what we have in the city, because if citizens are aware of what we have, they will also help to preserve.
And in that plan, once that the Oeiras it's urban municipality, also it's important to look to the urban biodiversity and how the urban biodiversity can link with the protected areas out of the urban area. So it's also is making that steps in Oeiras and how there's urban biodiversity inventory can make the people more aware of the importance of the biodiversity and the ecosystem service, of course.
Yes, of course. If we create these green areas, we know that in that part we are not going to put buildings or to put these
Green corridors, green areas that link with the
green corridors are in the urban, very urban areas. But then we do this green and blue axis with the rivers that we have, and we make it for people to go, to stay, for tourism, and so we preserve these areas and well, they are a bit separated from because in our city we have like 5 big urban areas, and so what we try is to put everything in these 5 big areas and the rest to preserve it and to create these green and blue areas between these big urban spaces.
and also create the high quality level for living and so on.
Yes,
and
monitorizing that
and
you said it before, and it's very important to have all the data so we can know what we have, we know what we need to do, and also we need what we have to take because we have a lot of invaders in the cities, species.
and
exotic.
with the participation of the citizens, with like BioBlitz and
yes,
so on.
Yes.
So you also talk about the importance of restoration. So we have the European Union restoration law that have the ambition to restore at least 20% of the EU lands and sea areas, and should be under restoration by 2030, and the global restoration of all ecosystems until 2050. For these targets, academia develops a lot of research projects. Patricia is pro-rector of University of Coimbra, one of the knownest university and the oldest university in Portugal. There are a lot of good examples for sure that are developing in the university. Can you present some of them?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, first of all, for Global Compact Portugal for this invitation. It's an honor to be here. It's a privilege to be participating in this panel and to share with you some of our experience from the perspective of a historical university that dates from 2090, one of the oldest in Europe also, which raises lots of challenges for ourselves and for our strategic planning. Indeed, because we are a university without walls. We are scattered around the city, across the city. We are not like, for example, American or English universities that are usually only
A campus.
on a campus. So the strategy of the university, that is mainly a research-oriented university, has many examples of projects that tackle biodiversity. We begin by having, for example, a UNESCO share on biodiversity and conservation for sustainable development that aims to, this share is led by a professor of biology, a well-renowned professor in Portugal. And this share...
Professor Helena Freitas.
Professor Helena Freitas, yes, that aims to implement and support a network of researchers and higher education and R&D institutions between Portugal, Angola, Mozambique, and other Portuguese-speaking countries. And the aim of this UNESCO share for biodiversity is to promote research, education, and also communication of science. This is one example, but we have many more projects. I was finding quite curious the examples that Filipa just mentioned in Oeiras regarding vineyards, because we have a project named Siberac. It's a project funded by Horizon Europe, by the European Commission. It's a project that comprises, it's a consortium between higher education institutions in Europe, and it aims to monitor and to evaluate the impact of the use of plant protection products on the biodiversity of Bairradas vineyards. For those who don't know Bairrada, it's a central region very close to Coimbra. It has very good wine also. So this project is very interesting because the type of products and plant production was funded because it was considered very valuable for the European Commission. So
and also because in that project, for example, and others for sure, that combine the climate change impacts with the protection of biodiversity as the objective of this COP, for example. So also important to make aware and more resilient the biodiversity.
Yes. For academia has a responsibility to make those bridges between all of these areas, all of these actions. There is
an holistic approach and so on.
Yes, of course. And we have the mission of promoting research and to teach our students that will lead the future. And we have also another very interesting project that also funded by the European Commission, named Be Safe, Be Honey. It's focused on the health of honeybees to support sustainable beekeeping. Very important, like you were just mentioning in Oeiras also. So it's to protect nature, it's to reverse the degradation of the ecosystems, and to halt the loss of health of bees. So we also make assessments of the campus biodiversity. We are one of the few universities in Portugal that owns a botanical garden. So it's quite an important place and data source of biodiversity. We also own a farm, a palace, in the outskirts of the city where we plant many vegetables and fruits that provide our canteens for the students. And so we are...
In a biological way.
Yes, in a biological way, because we have colleagues from several departments, from certain faculties that have the expertise to counsel the local farmers to help us raise in a healthy and
And also have the opportunity in that places to make the practical research for sure.
Yes, our botanical garden, for example, is a classroom for our students of biology and the other courses. So it's not just for, it's pleasant to make to spend some hours, but it's a classroom, it's a living lab,
Yeah.
as the old university is. So this joint aspect, this bridge that we have between research and teaching, and also the knowledge transferred with impact with businesses, with companies, and also with municipalities, because we have to remember that unlike Lisbon or São Paulo, from
João.
the city from João, Coimbra is a medium-sized city. So we work very closely with the municipality of Coimbra, and we also search for funding from companies and work closely together so that we can really make an impact to society.
And once that you call, talking about the impact, I would like to ask João, because we are really running out of time, and there are a clearly impact on the business in terms of environmental and also in terms of biodiversity and the ecosystem service. And the question is how we can ensure in a long-term way the economic stability between business and also this ecosystem service, and to guarantee the biodiversity in the long term also.
So we recently launched our climate transition action plan that is focused not only in decarbonization, how we will do the transition to a net zero society, but also how we manage governance and resilience internally. How do we engage and advocate for more ambitious goals in terms of climate and biodiversity, and also a pillar related to people, biodiversity, nature, and climate. And I would like to share one specific project that somehow is related how we do assess climate risks and opportunities, and how these, when we interact with the examples that we see, like in the supply chain that could be disrupted because a climate event will, like a rainfall or a storm or somehow, how this affects our business and how we need to manage those risks in terms of having not only a fruitful or growth for the future, but also conserving biodiversity. And this specific project that I would like to share is an agroforestry system that we are promoting in the Amazon region, that combine palm oil with cocoa and other subsistence species in order to promote a very resilient space of for the growth of palm oil, that is one of our main commodities that we use, but also how it promotes regeneration in terms of using degraded lands to promote those agroforestry systems with less pesticide, with less fertilizers, and with the whole concept of ecological based approach, that we will have not only insumes like raw ingredients that has those values, conserving biodiversity, but also ensuring that we will have commodities to use in the future.
Well, João mentioned the big elephant that we have in the room. It's about the production and also this balance between the agriculture production and also the importance that to provide to people. And I pass very quickly to Filipe, because in a municipality that are density, how you can sensitizing and also educate people to choose products that are 0 kilometers, that are local production and so on, also to protect from intensive production, to protect in some way, in indirect way, the biodiversity overall.
Well, that's the $1 million question. How can we engage people? It's not easy, of course. We have to communicate. We have to also give the example. For instance, we did it the last 2 years, pollinator park, and we started with 4 hectares of flower meadows, and we started to produce honey. So it's biological honey, and of course this is an example we want to share with people. But of course we need to do more, and we just can do it engaging, calling citizens to work with us, to see what we are doing, to give them information about what can be their choices. We also finished this year our action plan for energy and climate, and one of the big axes is communication. And we know this is very difficult, and this is a very big challenge to engage people, to do more good choices for the environment, to also change their practices, and we have to
And also,
always be
also begin and engage young people, like
Yes.
2 young
Yes.
boys that you bring
Yes.
to COP.
Well, that was our also. We thought, how can we gauge the youngest? How can we make them think with us about all these issues that are climate related, but giving them information so they can really come and discuss and not just demand. And being part of the solution.
And very
so we
quickly,
decided-
I
Yeah.
also like to invite how they call
It's Matias and Tomás.
Matthias and Tomás. Can you come to the stage only to give very quickly your opinion, and also how, if you are liking to be in COP in Baku in Azerbaijan, in inviting of Oeiras municipality, very quickly.
Yes, of course. It's an incredible experience that we know that many youngsters don't have the capacity or the opportunity to be here, and we are very grateful to have this experience with so many people, different cultures, and all of the knowledge that you're sharing with us. It's very important to have this experience and share it with other youngsters from our schools and others.
For sure, it will be an experience that will mark for your life, no?
Yeah. As my friend said, I think that this is an opportunity that can be replicated in many years, and we have the opportunity to be here and to be in the privilege that many youngsters don't have and cannot have access. We have here so many cultures that we just want to learn. We just want to collect all the knowledge that people have and make progress in the future, because this is the way it's supposed to be. People talking, people making consensus, and I feel like this is the way we're making progress, and we hope we can make it too.
Thank you very much for your inspired
Thank
words.
you.
For sure, we will have biologic engineers or even climate change engineers here in COP. So I will pass for the last words to Patricia of the University of Coimbra. Who knows that they could be your students in the university?
I already talked with them yesterday, challenging them to study with us in Coimbra. I'm sure they would be very happy there. For example, for first-year students at the University of Coimbra, on the first day, we offer them on a volunteer base. We have an initiative called UC Plants, UC Plantas. We invite new students to adopt and care for a plant, and from the native flora of mainland Portugal during the school year, and then afterwards they will be planted. And we also have workshops for first-year students held at the botanical garden. So it's really.
And it creates a self-belonging with the
Yes.
the biodiversity, the plants, and so on. So
Yes, and it's a way of integrating students, showing that we are completely committed with sustainable development practices, namely biodiversity and restoration policies, and they have a role and a concrete action to deal with. And they see the outcomes in a short period of time of a very simple action that is not very time consuming, but is very important and very relevant.
To link with
Yes.
these priorities.
Yes.
So thank you all, and of course thank for the Global Compact to UN in Portugal to invite us, and also thank you for your participation. I hope that everyone likes this debate about the driving with nature, why biodiversity is a strategic business priority. Thanks to all.
Thank you for joining us on this event.